Eve, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the panel and get us started. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kim, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We're very fortunate to have our second panel with 3 presentations. So Dr. Dzwonkowski, Dr. Milbrandt, and Dr. Yu will be presenting. And we'll start off with Dr. Dzwonkowski. Sorry, I always say D.
It's fine.
If you don't mind taking us off, we'll get started. And again, what we'll do is I have the 1 minute and the stop. I'll verbalize the stop, and then we will have some time for Q&A, and then we have some questions for all participants as well. So thank you. If you want to start us off, Brian.
Sure.
And everybody else can turn off their camera.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Brian Dzwonkowski. I'm with the University of South Alabama and Dauphin Island Sea Lab. And I work with a team of folks at the Sea Lab to help run and maintain Alabama real-time coastal observing system, which we call ARCOS, right? And so myself, Pat David, Josh Goff, and our technicians, AJ Stewart and Cameron Tyler. So there's a crew of us kind of making this happen. Mostly the guys I mentioned below are the people who are doing most of the heavy lifting. And so this network sort of, we'll show you the network in a minute, but we cover generally a couple different strategic areas. Coastal hazards. So I think this presentation could have easily been in the previous section as well, where we do a lot of our stakeholders are interested in coastal hazards. But we also have stakeholders who are interested in healthy ecosystems and living resources and human health and safety. Next slide. So this is the ARCOS network. And so each of the arrows that you see is a wind vector, with the exception of the orange one, which is a wave vector. And so in addition to those wind vectors, or those vectors, you can see there's meteorological information. And so really the focus of ARCOS is to provide, to collect and distribute meteorological and water quality data in coastal Alabama and the surrounding areas as far as we can sort of extend ourselves. And right now the network is 11 stations, and the stations are sort of positioned, we go from the freshwater end member up at the head of the delta, the head of the bay near the end of the Mississippi, the Mobile Tennesaw River Delta. And so those sites are very fresh in nature. And we go as far offshore as the 20-meter isobath. We're about 16 kilometers south of Dauphin Island, and so we have the marine end member, and so we have a number of stations that span that gradient. So that's the spatial map of what this looks like. And if we distribute this data to a number of different platforms, we obviously have our own internal, or not our own sort of local network, where this is sort of the front part of the landing page, but each of those sites have their own individual maps and sort of tables that you can look at, and there are some really cool grading functions that Pat David has developed, and so stakeholders can look at the data in a range of different ways, largely time series, for each individual station. And you can also download all the data, going back a number of years. We'll talk about that in a second. But we also push this data out to NODBC and obviously GCOOS. So there's a number of places that people can get at this data. Next slide. Right, so what is the data? Kind of seen a little bit of the meteorological side, but we also have a hydrographic side, right? So the meteorological data, we have air temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, wind speed direction, incoming solar radiation, and photosynthetically active radiation. We also have water quality data at each of these stations with typically a YSI sonde at most sites, there's one exception. And so we have water level, temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and turbidity. And then we've also sort of started expanding into wave data. This is something that we've been missing for a number of years, and some opportunities have presented themselves. And so we have a spotter buoy offshore near meteorological buoy, and we also have, we're working on getting an acoustic wave and current profiler, an AWAC, in the center of the bay to provide some wave information for the bay near the shipping channel, basically. The pictures you see here, this just gives you a sense of where our stations are, right? So each one of these pictures is a station. So the one on the top right is the Dauphin Island station. So this is right by the Sea Lab. The lighthouse is Middle Bay Lighthouse, which is in the center of the bay. The post there, that's in Bon Secours Bay, which is sort of the eastern portion of Mobile Bay. The buoy you see, that's 9 miles south of Dauphin Island, or 16 kilometers south of Dauphin Island. And then the spotter buoy you see that sort of I'm holding, that's 1 nautical mile to the east of that buoy, of the WECP buoy, the floating buoy offshore. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. So what did the data look like? Well, this just gives you a little sense of what we've been collecting over in the duration, right? So this is one of our longer stations. We have 20 plus years of data. This is at the Dauphin Island station, but there's like 3 stations that have been collecting data since 2003. And so, you know, what you can start seeing here is, right, there's like, this is water temperature, salinity, and then the lower plots are sort of the low frequency, long sort of climatic kind of patterns, right? Sort of not quite trends, but sort of just climate variability type stuff. And so the black is the observations, and then I work with a numerical modeler, Chalong Liu, who has developed a long-term model run of Mobile Bay. And so that's the red you're seeing there is a model that's being calibrated to these environmental variables. And so by having these long durations, you can start looking at, you know, sort of 5 to 10 year type patterns, even sort of you can get at some long-term trends. I obviously wouldn't call them climate change trends, but sort of environmental trends. And so by having these stations monitoring over long periods of time, we're really getting a sense of what the system's doing and potentially how it's changing. Next slide. Yeah, so who is using this data? I kind of ran out of space here, but this just gives you a flavor. I didn't want the text to be so small. And so I just listed a couple, several of our stakeholders that are actively using this data. So we have Mobile Baykeeper, which is a local nonprofit organization trying to advocate for various issues they think are important. So right now they're very interested in, we just had a ship channel deepening and widening project happening in the bay. And they're really interested in seeing what the effect on salinity and turbidity in the system was in response to that change. So we have, 18 years prior, and now we're going to have post monitoring. So we'll have a really good data set to look at how the system's changed by deepening and widening the ship channel. There's also a lot of concern about what they're doing with the dredge material as a part of this ship channel operation. So the Army Corps of Engineers is currently using thin layer displacement, and there's a lot of concerned people about that practice. And so they're really interested in looking at the turbidity data from across the bay to see if there's a change in clarity. We have Navy Cove Oyster Company, right? So this is a commercial oyster operation. There's several commercial oyster operations around the bay that are really interested in environmental data. They're largely interested in dissolved oxygen and salinity data for making management decisions with their oyster farms. We know of multiple charter boat captains that they're taking people out on the water. So what do they want? They want wind and wave data. Some of them, you kind of keep track of salinity and temperature, but that, just kind of when they're fishing, what areas are going to be good for what fish, that sort of thing. But wind and wave data are really the bigger drivers for those, the charter boat captains. We also have the Mobile bar pilots. They're really most interested in wind and wave data. The offshore wave and wind buoy that you saw south of Dauphin Island, they really like that. That's relatively new. And that's sort of a place where they're getting on and off boats. And so they really like having that data. to make decisions about when they can get on and off these boats. And they obviously have to take the large container ships into Port of Mobile. The Alabama Department of Transportation, there's a ferry that runs, what is that, 1 minute? Yikes, okay, I did not time this well. We have a lot of stakeholders. I could go on for a while. Next slide. Yeah, I think one of the key findings here is the power of monitoring dramatically increases with duration, right? So this is twofold, right? The more consistent and regular your data is, the more stakeholders will get attached to it and start using it. And then also the better science you can do, the more statistically robust statements you can make. And so having a regularly maintained long-term study site, I think, is much more valuable than a lot of stations over short-term intermittent periods. That's my own personal opinion, but that's what I think is really powerful. And what I would say is this has been demonstrated in the scientific success we have had with ARCOS data. We've had numerous scientific studies that all used ARCOS data. Stop. Okay. So I didn't get a chance to introduce one of our stakeholders, the National Weather Service. We've been working with them a lot for the wind and wave data. They did not have, because of the government shutdown, they're not able to participate today. And so we really don't get much feedback. We weren't able to include them too much in this presentation. Okay.
Thank you very much, Brian. That's a great example, that list of people that you serve through your programs. Incredible, and wish we had more time, but there will be Q&A at the end, a short period to answer some more. So thank you. So our next speaker will be Dr. Milbrandt. He's going to be talking about the recon program. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Milbrandt so y'all have as much time for the Q&A and panel discussion.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Milbrandt. I'm a research scientist, but also the director of the Marine Laboratory at a 501c3 nonprofit in Southwest Florida. And our observing network is the River Estuary and Coastal Observing Network. Interestingly enough, because we are a nonprofit, we do have a lot of influence on through outreach and through educating our decision makers. And so on our staff, does not report to me, but we do have policy, natural resource policy professionals that conduct this work. And that person, Ali Pasenka, is driving to an Everglades Coalition meeting today, so she won't be able to present, but she did prepare some slides as our main stakeholder, which is really our outreach and education of decision makers. Next slide. Great. So as Brian mentioned, we are focused on an estuary. Our estuary is impacted by the Everglades. We are the primary outlet for floodwater from Lake Okeechobee and the entire Kissimmee River drainage from Orlando. So we have an artificially huge watershed, a very polluted lake, and then lots of suburban and agricultural pollution that comes through our system. The map there kind of shows where we are. We're in Southwest Florida between Naples, Fort Myers, and Charlotte Harbor area. A lot of the motivation for us starting this was Everglades restoration. We have projects coming online that are going to store and treat water. And what was happening and continues to happen is that we are either starved for water or we have way too much water if there's flooding elsewhere. And so that has had significant impacts on the living resources in the estuary. It's caused massive algae blooms, both freshwater and marine blooms. And so our main goal is to provide the continuous real-time water quality and weather data to inform coastal managers and identify some of these hazards both to the environment and to people. And because of our county, our position in our county, and the island that I work on, we are a tourism-based economy. And if you kill the golden goose, so to speak, you will have an economic downturn. Fortunately, Sanibel has been founded on conservation. We have a lot of preserved lands. It's very stable during economic downturns, and we were trying to use that as an example of the rest of the county. But we basically are cleaning, calibrating, and maintaining sensors in the marine environment. I'll tell you what those parameters are here in a moment. But we do also have a great website that we're actually going to revise soon. It's over 10 years old now, but it has apps that you can use on your phone. You can use the data very easily, especially the weather data, and it's used by the local boating community. But then we serve up the weekly conditions through a report that goes to the water management community, which is basically the state of Florida has the water management district, and then the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers controls where the water goes in the Everglades. And throughout time, we've found that there are policies for stages and estuary conditions that have been developed over the course of many years of policy development to try and provide conditions that are favorable for the living resources, although we're still having many challenges. And then some of the other stakeholders listed, our local TV meteorologists use the especially water temperature and weather data every day. We have other nonprofits that are with us in the trying to focus on the health of the ecosystem. And then we also provide data to anyone, but to the modeling community as they develop models. Next slide. So these are the types of data we use. Seabird CTDs with their eco-fluorometer packages. We get a suite of physical parameters, but also are measuring the chlorophyll and optical properties of the water, turbidity, and fluorescent dissolved organic matter. One of the things that we've found to be very useful since we started the system in 2007 is elevation or water level relative to a datum, because we've had so many king tide events and flooding events on our island, storm surges from hurricanes. Those sort of after action reports are much more, you can learn a lot more if you have data behind them. So we do our weather data every 15 minutes, and we've been working with Beth Stoffer and Brian Roberts and many others to try and measure nutrients continuously, in particular nitrate. Our system does span from freshwater all the way into the high salinity waters of the Gulf and everywhere in between. So you have a lot of very dynamic things happening, and some very interesting ones in terms of nitrogen. Next slide. All right, so I sort of alluded to this on the far left panel. We have the weekly memos that go to the colonel of the Army Corps that's in charge of the Jacksonville district and the Everglades restoration. That also goes to the executive director of the Water Management District and their whole scientific team. And we basically summarize and synthesize the data. We try and make it so it's a stoplight, like in this example shown here. It shows the salinities at various parts of the estuary and what conditions whether conditions are being met for tape grass, which is a type of submerged aquatic vegetation, and oysters are the other main indicator species. The model development side of things has been really interesting. I'm not a modeler by any means, but I've met some really smart people that do this work. They've done a couple of models from Lake Okeechobee to the watershed that, and also to the estuary that are used to better predict the movement of particles and algae bloom concentrations and so on. So that group's out of the University of Florida. We've been working with Felix Jones at Florida Gulf Coast University on a larval transport model for oysters that uses temperature, salinity, depth to calibrate the model. And then one sort of really interesting application of the data after several years of really bad water quality and algae blooms, a realtors group hired some modeling folks to crunch data on water clarity and transparency and link those values, link those to real estate values, and in particular, the drop in real estate values when you have poor water quality. So, and in terms of the voting information, the most hits, so to speak, in terms of people looking at the data are looking at weather, wind data, forecasts. We push out the NOAA voter forecast. We also share a lot of the data with commercial weather outlets like Wind Alert, and they apply their wind models. And of course, we push data to GCOOS and have been supported by GCOOS since 2011. Next slide. All right, I couldn't agree more with Brian in terms of the value of long-term monitoring and data sets. They're often not valued as much as they actually are very valuable, especially when it comes to looking at, thank you, at long-term harm to ecosystems. You can have like a really short-term salinity spike or a marine heat wave, for example, that might last a week to a month that could damage the living resources for years. So we also use a lot of the data during hurricanes. We leave our equipment out and it takes a risk, and we can see where it's flooding. And the city City of Sanibel and Lee County Emergency Services, they're looking at the data, they're looking at the water levels as these conditions are happening, and helping to stage equipment and provide emergency advice to people. So next slide. I only have a minute left, so I'm going to kind of go quickly. This is our mission. Next slide. It's to protect and care for Southwest Florida ecosystems. That's Allie on the right. Here's our, go ahead, next slide. Yes, so this is, okay, this is the end of the presentation, but basically they want, let's go to the challenges, because I think I've already talked about the needs. Next slide. And next slide. The challenge is really they want more data. They want more data in the Gulf, especially regarding red tide and other algae blooms. They want more flow data, gauges throughout the watershed to better evaluate nutrient loading and so on. And then there's one NOAA water level station, the whole Charlotte Harbor region, that's in Fort Myers, and it's given all the surges and stuff that we've been seeing. That's something we've really noticed, that there's a lot of gaps in terms of like evaluating flooding. So thank you very much for giving me an extra minute. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Eric. It's a great presentation again. Sorry we're limited in time. I'm really interested in that realtor study too. That's pretty interesting. So we do have one last speaker. And before we share that presentation, just wanted to ask everybody if you can put in the question and answer, if you have a question, who you're directing it to. We're going to try and maximize our time with our panelists to answer those questions, but also have 2 questions for all of the panel or everybody on this call. So right now, Marcus is pulling up the presentation for Dr. Chuanmin Hu. And in the meantime, you can start putting your questions in the question box for either Eric, Brian, or what you might anticipate for Chuanmin. And also think about the 2 questions that we've had that we asked right at the end of the last panel. Those are the same questions we're going to be asking you. Thank you, Tracy, for putting that in the chat. We wanted to focus on what is the greatest challenge or need for improving stakeholder application of observation data. So we're going to ask everybody to answer that question. And also, how can we improve tracking of outcomes related to stakeholder data application and measure economic value of those activities? So please keep in the back of your mind what you'd like to answer for those two questions. That's going to help inform GCOOS's plans moving forward. And Dr. Hugh, can you turn on your screen? Great, thank you very much. And I know you have a different name because you logged in under a different account. So this is Dr. Chuanmin Hugh. And if you want to get started, I know Marcus, I think, is working on getting your PowerPoint shared.
Yeah, that's good. Because I don't know how to share my screen, so I would need to rely on you guys to go over.
I gave you access to share your present, so you should be able to share now.
Change presenter. Give me a minute. I don't know. Show.
So I'm in the worst case is we already have your slides collated if you need us to advance them for you. We just don't have the live link for you.
Okay, I can't see which button would allow me to share. So maybe you can show my slides if you can.
I will do that for you. Let me get this pulled up for you. All right, let me know you see it.
No, I see. Well, I see my own image. I don't see anything else. This is weird. Give me a second. I will log off and log in again. Okay, now I see it.
Okay, perfect.
Good. Well, thank you very much. My name is Chuanmin Hu. I used my associate's login link. Okay, so it may appear to be another name. Anyway, I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present our small project funded by GCOOS. The project name is Satellite Earth Observations in Support of GCOOS. So unlike two previous speakers, what I'm going to present are based on satellites, remote sensing. So I'm from USF. The project has several GCOOS focus areas, including coastal hazards, healthy ecosystems and living resources, human health and safety, and red tides. Next slide, please. So the goal of the project is to continue and expand support of satellite remote sensing needs of GCOOS with two specific objectives. The first is to document long-term oceanographic changes in several essential ocean variables, such as temperature, chlorophyll, and so on. Second is to support monitoring and forecasting of various harmful algal blooms, such as Cranium brevis red tides, cyanobacteria blooms, and sargassum blooms, through providing near real-time customized satellite imagery. Next slide, please. We generate a lot of types of data, and we provide all of them in near real-time from a web portal on our website. I list several examples, which include sea surface temperature, true color imagery, false color imagery, normalized fluorescence line height, maximum chlorophyll index, second disk depth, floating algae density, cyano bloom index, and etc. These are for harmful algal blooms, water quality, and sargassum blooms. So to the left, I show several specific areas for red tide observations. These are customized images of different types. Of course, we cover the entire GCOOS region, the Gulf of America. And to the right, those are even more customized data products with a specific focus using higher resolution satellites. You see on the top left corner, there's a legend. The cyan color for MODIS, OCHI, those are 300 meter, 250 meter resolution data. The red color is MSI, that's a Sentinel-2, that's a 10 meter resolution data. And the yellow color is a Super Dove, that's a 3 meter resolution data. So we have some customized images for selected areas. So next slide, please. So here's one example of the type of data. This is floating algae density that is used to watch or to monitor sargassum inundation. This is the PDF version, so I don't have the animation running. But if you can imagine, you can see how this highlighted features over a blue background ocean would evolve in time. So to the left, we see a high, the cyan color feature of the Yucatan Channel. That is a high density of sargassum. And over time, this sargassum would be transported to the Gulf to reach Mobile Bay and Texas coast, and also Florida coast. And to the right, that's a zoom out picture to show where this sargassum comes from. It's not local, it comes from the tropical Atlantic. So by combining different satellite sensors, we can view both the large picture in the Atlantic and also a zoom-in picture in selected local areas of sargassum inundation. So this is just one type of application. Next slide, please. So we gauged our data use to see who used our data and from which area and for what region. So these are the top 10 regions that use our images very often for the first 5 months of this year. GCOOS is one of them, probably ranked number 2 or number 3. We have a unique, more than 300 users to use the GCOOS data. So most of the users are from the US. So over that period, we have more than 200,000 files viewed and downloaded with about 170,000 megabytes of data downloaded. When they view the data, they don't download it, they don't count for the file size. So there's a lot of file, data download. So the user, the stakeholders actually range from governmental agencies, environmental groups. You'll see that later. Next slide, please. So what are our key findings? So our sargassum watch system provides critical information on sargassum distributions and amounts. The different stakeholders, they range from governmental agencies, environmental groups, researchers, business owners, and the general public. Sargassum used to be local within the Gulf, okay? 10, 15 years ago, that's a local phenomenon. But in recent years, most sargassum in the Gulf actually was transported from elsewhere, from the Caribbean Sea, from tropical Atlantic Ocean. So it's a remote. So there appear an increasing trend in sargassum amount in the Gulf, especially in the last 5 years. What are the challenges we face? So we do have high resolution images, but they are only available for several selected regions. We need more coverage to benefit more people. Our detection accuracy also needs to be improved. Of course, funding is always limited. That's our challenge. Next slide, please. So I was asked to talk about a stakeholder mission because we have many stakeholders. I don't have their individual missions listed here, but they each have their own mission, depending on the type of stakeholders. So next slide. Recently, we did an online survey, ask the different types of stakeholders how exactly they used our data, how they benefited or not benefit from our data. I quoted some of the responses. You can read. I would not read the whole thing this time because the slides will be shared with everyone. You can read, but you can see at least the stakeholders range from the government, the state groups, environmental groups, business and researchers, federal agencies, and even BBC studios. Okay. A lot. They use our data products for different purposes. Next slide. I think this is my last one. Stakeholder challenges. So I'm speaking for them. Okay. So in general, from their survey, they need more data, more accurate data, more coverage, and for their backyard. Okay. So mostly we cover the offshore ocean, but they need a zoom-in picture for a certain beach, a certain nearshore water, water body, estuary. So that's their need. But this is very, very difficult due to limitations in the available resources. Those include data availability, infrastructure, personnel availability, and funding availability. I think that's all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was great. Really enjoyed all those quotes. So again, everybody will get those slides so they can go through those quotes. Brian and Eric, if you can turn your screens on, we are now to the question and answer period for our panel. We have one question that's come in that we'd like to ask. This is for all speakers. And this also came up in the previous panel a little bit too, but what measures are being implemented to prevent and mitigate damage to buoys and sensors caused by vandalism, vessel collisions, intentional or unintentional, and severe weather events such as hurricanes?
I mean, I could take a first crack. I'm sure everyone's got their own. I mean, to some extent, I don't know how much you can do. I mean, you're putting something in a marine environment. Obviously, you make sure the Coast Guard knows it's there. It gets put on nautical charts. I mean, yeah, I think to some extent you're just at the mercy of the general public, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do to prevent a boat interaction. I mean, we could potentially think about signage, saying this is federal material. It's, you're breaking the law if you mess with it. I mean, that's one thing we could potentially think about doing. Thankfully, our sites haven't been we have not experienced a whole lot of vandalism on our sites. We have one site that has been a little bit impacted in terms of, but generally not much vandalism at our sites. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't have great ideas there.
Yeah, I'll just say that we have purposely attached our equipment to U.S. Coast Guard ACE navigation markers with the intent that if someone messes with it, that there would be a federal sort of offense. We've never had anyone mess with our stuff other than throw cast nets on it, which is more of a pain for us. The issue that we've had recently is boat strikes, and I don't know what you can do about that. So we've figured out the lightning thing. We're in a very lightning enriched environment, so I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but we haven't had a lightning strike in, knock on wood, like 15 years, so that's good.
Great, thank you both very much. I do have a question for Dr. Hugh. What recommendations can you give us for improving stakeholder response to surveys on data use and outcomes?
Okay. Well, work with them very often. Well, especially if they know you personally, they would like to respond. So over the years, we have developed a user base for over 10 years. So very often we communicate with each other. So I sent actually a request, for this online survey to about 200 people, and I got 50 responses. detailed responses. It's 25%. I think that's not bad. Okay, but because we communicated in the past. Just like if I put myself in their shoes, if I receive a survey request from nowhere, I don't know this person, perhaps I don't respond. So in the meantime, when projects, when we develop products, we just let the users know we have some new things and ask for their opinion. So then over the years, we improve this interaction. Then we will have a survey request, they respond.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those. Personal relationships make a big difference. That's great to hear. Well, thank you. So we are still maybe having some trouble with audio. So right now, all three of you are hearing a thunderous applause for being on this panel. So thank you all very much for your service and sharing today. Again, all the slides will be shared. If people have questions, follow-up questions, I'm sure we can manage getting those questions to you through email, and you can respond to that if y'all don't mind doing that. But thank you all again. I'll clap on behalf of the 62 people that are here. So thank you so much. And we are now to the next point in our session where we're going to have a discussion questions for everybody who is participating. So whether you presented or not, we would like to ask you these two questions. I'm going to put the first one back in the chat. I think you've seen it 3 times now at this point. But what is the greatest challenge or need and potential solution, if you have one, for improving stakeholder application of observation data? So we like everybody in the question box, you can add your answer, even though it's not a question, you're answering that question right now. And I'm going to put it on mute for a second while all of your answers come in. So again, we're focused just on the greatest challenge or need for improving stakeholder application of observation data. Thank you. Brian has added one. Thank you, Dr. Hugh, as well. And again, if you are not a panelist, you're welcome to, and we would love for your answers to go in that question box if you can access the question and answer section of GoToWebinar. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks. So some of the answers that have come in, I'm not sure everybody can see the question and answer, so I'm going to answer a few right now, and then we're going to move on to the next question, but please continue typing. So what we have here is Brian shared finding a place with where you can meet stakeholders and then finding the time and effort to engage with them. A challenge was also to have the right experts to tailor the application to better fit the user needs. Also, we have, in the case of new data types, a major challenge is stakeholder confidence in the data. That's a good point. That was a concern raised by stakeholders. maintaining the data flow. Once you start providing data to users, they get used to getting it. And if it disappears, the pressure is on us to provide it. Some of the ones Stephen mentioned, I think the greatest need is creating a way to access all GCOOS data and products from one page. And then another need in retrospect and is retrospective and actual data on marine life. All speakers talked about ecosystem, tourism, impacts on human life. All these depend on marine life and marine living resource data. We need organized, standardized data products using data collected from multiple sources, and also new data to fill gaps. So I'm gonna, in our last 5 minutes before Kim closes us out, I'm gonna put in question number 2, which is how can we improve tracking of outcomes related to stakeholder data applications and measure economic value of activities. Again, our speakers gave some really good examples of how stakeholders have used the data, and obviously they're tracking that in order to share that, but how can we continue to improve tracking of outcomes related to stakeholder data application and measure the economic value? So I'm gonna stay on mute while more answers come in, and I'll read off both the chat and the questions that come in. All right, we have a few answers that have come in. Again, please continue to contribute either in the question box or the chat. Here were some of the answers we got. So how to track routine communications and send a well-prepared survey to stakeholders. So that's a reoccurring theme, is that continued engagement. And then one needs to get real needs from stakeholders, including density, frequency, depth of observations. For example, US Coast Guard do not need deep currents, but need accurate and frequent surface currents and wind data. So refining what the end user needs are is what Tony Knapp shared. And Christina from the Coast Guard shared from the US Coast Guard, one additional request is a Rio Grande flow speed. Not sure who can provide that, if it's GCOOS or which other group. So that's another area for us to look at, maybe within the scope moving forward. As far as others in the question and answer, we need a continuing stream of good stories to tell the general public. So that storytelling part of successes with GCOOS, sharing the work and how that's been applied. For the second question, we need some way IUS-wide to maintain a DOI based on who produced the data and then track the users. Got it. Thank you, Stephen. Any other final comments before we turn it over to Kim? You still have a few more minutes, and while Kim is closing us out too, if something strikes you, you can add to this, as well as email either Chris or Marcus or Jorge. I'm sure they would love to, or Kim, to get some more answers to these questions as they look forward towards planning the next 5 years for GCOOS. So thank you, Kim. I'm going to turn it over to you now. Appreciate everybody's input. And again, thanks. We had an excellent panel. Both panels were very, very good.
Thank you, Steve. And very many thanks to everyone for joining today. I want to give a special thanks to all of our panelists and presenters. These discussions and conversations are very important for us as we're planning the next 5 years and beyond for GCOOS. So we really appreciate your input and thought for both the questions and the answers that we posed to you all today. I want to give a thank you to our GCOOS staff and board for helping organize our meeting. Special thanks to Tracy and Steve for facilitating our panels. And if you have any unanswered questions that you weren't able to get in the chat or that you think of later, please feel free to email them to Marcus Ogle, and we'll make sure that they get answered and get directed to the right person for you. We very much hope to see everyone in person at our spring meeting to continue celebrating our 20 years of GCOOS. Jorge, I'd like to give you the opportunity for any last comments before I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Kim. Well, I just want to add to the thank you to everybody, to our board, our staff, Stephen and Tracy, Jeff and Kristen Jorinsic as well, who have helped throughout this meeting since yesterday. So thank you, everyone. We're looking forward to see you in person next year in the spring, hopefully. And like Steve and Kim just mentioned, we'll compile questions and provide answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jorge. All right, I would like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting. Can someone please provide a motion for that? Chris, that might come in the chat.
I'll make the motion and amend the notes to reflect what comes in the chat.
All right, thank you. And I'm assuming we'll do the same with the second for that. And so I will officially adjourn our meeting. And thanks again to everyone and have a great afternoon.